This is the fifth lesson, 75 Arlington Street, and I want to talk about something before we continue to model the shell. There's a part that I've ignored for the time being. It has to do with the column grid. Naturally, it is central to the building, and we see from the AutoCAD drawing an alignment of the facade facing Arlington Street with the grid, so that the grid is orthogonal to the Arlington Street facade. The building itself is slightly askew, but this moves rather slowly because... Okay, so what I'm going to do is begin placing the grid lines. I'm not going to record my doing that the entire time. Let's start here. So the numbers are generally grid numbers are usually placed horizontally. I sometimes forget that. And vertically rearrange the letters. So I'm just drawing, and this is going to help us place columns. Grid lines are datum elements with which organize relationships between things. So if you place columns at the intersection of grid lines, moving those grid lines will move the columns as well. That's sometimes convenient. Now we want to track across A, B, C, D. Let's do A first. Let's modify that. A. Draw another grid line. So Revit infers or tries to guess at the next value. There's B, there's C. It went surprisingly quickly, actually, right? And finally D. The bubbles appear when you check the endpoint of the, let's select the grid line. If I check this checkbox, then you get the grid bubble. So that's convenient because we placed it in the AutoCAD, but we also have that representation available to us in other views. Let me rename this view and call it Level 1 with image of floor 1. So the purpose of the image is to inform us about how we're going to use it as a strategy to detail the elements we're modeling, but we're not necessarily, because it's an imperfect and not a vector graphic, we can't really snap to it because it isn't line work. But we can use it to inform our modeling strategy. Let's begin with, let's go back to level 1 and start placing the columns. I think the columns are about 3 feet in diameter. You want to place an architectural column, and the column is we want circular one, so if we don't have one, we need to load a family. There's only rectangular columns, so let's click on load family. Columns. Not picking the structural column, just architectural. And we need, okay, so we'll need to duplicate this type and create a 36-inch diameter column. And the diameter okay. Well, that might be a little bit too big. Let's measure that. Proceeded a little too quickly there, didn't I? From here to there. 1, so I guess it's a 24-inch. Let's try that. Architecture, column. Do we have a 24? Yeah. Great. So it's snapping to the intersections of the grid datum objects that I've created. Oh, okay. Goes pretty quickly when your grid lines are already in place. there's an exception to the intersection. See that there's an exception to our grid. Here and here. So we'll deal with that later. We'll measure that, but it probably won't affect overall what we're doing. That was the exception. Let's go to our 3D view. So we're in pretty good shape. All right. We still haven't dealt with the articulation of the facade, which to some degree corresponds with this grid. And I will save out this lesson as a separate lesson in organizing a grid-based drawing.